Safety Board, which has been conducted from the Council Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. The meeting has now been recorded and will be made available on the Comhairle's website following the meeting. Before we move to the agenda, I would like to provide a brief update. I recently attended the COSLA Justice Committee, where a presentation was given on the changes to the short-term prisoner release point. Other matters discussed included Scottish prison sentencing and penal policy, as well as the local government response to the Sentencing Commission recommendations. I also attended the Police Scotland North Regional Scrutiny meeting on the 27th of May. The items discussed at the engagement session included updates on Retail Crime Task Force, online child exploitation and national road safety, some of which will be, I'm sure, picked up later on. I'd also like to welcome our new Chief Executive, Martin Joyce, to his first meeting of the Community Safety Board. The first item is the minute of the meeting of the 28th of January. You'll recall we didn't have a meeting in the last series, so that's the last meeting, and we have the minutes there for our approval. Everybody happy to approve the minute? Yep. All those online too, thanks. Thank you. So we move on now to item 2, the declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interests they have in any item on the agenda. It would be helpful if members expressed why they're declaring such an interest in the item concerned. Members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone, or if you're attending remotely through Teams, by using the raise hand function. And please ensure the declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item. I am not seeing any, so we'll move on now to item 3. The Police and Fire. The Chief Inspector Ross McCartney has given his apologies for today's meeting, so I'd like to welcome Police Inspector Neil Taylor, who's online, to the meeting, and invite the Inspector to speak. He's not online. He's in the chamber waving at me over there. Sorry about that. So I'd like to particularly welcome him to the chamber and invite him to speak to the performance report. Press the middle button.
So I'm live now, yeah? Okay, happy days. So thank you very much for inviting me along. Mr McCartney sends his apologies for the meeting, of course. Forgive me, I've been in this post only 7 weeks, so I'm just getting my head around the islands, etc., and all the areas around the report. 21 years served in West Yorkshire Police, so I'm just transferred across recently. So I'm trying to bring some of my experience from a bigger force area into the Western Isles. Okay, so if we go through the report, do you want me to read out Mr McCartney's crime statistics, or are you quite happy that that's been read by everyone?
I'm hoping that everyone has read it. They've had a chance to have a look at it. So I think you don't need to read the whole thing, but just focus on the big points if you wish.
No problem at all. So working through it, obviously there's a big focus on road safety, which I'm very much focused on myself. We are, at the moment, I'm pushing my sergeants and officers to go out and do proactive work around speeding and antisocial behaviour in vehicles. Since I've come to the island, I've noticed there seems to be a habitual young people driving about in cars back and forward on Bay Head and back and forward all the time with loud exhausts and so forth. So we're doing a lot of work around that. I've got a sergeant who's been tasked to link in with DVSA, which is the old name for VOSA, to do a joint operation in the summer around ASB and vehicles, etc., which we're looking forward to on the island. Moving on to, I'll talk about drugs, because it's in the crime statistics there about drugs. You'll all be aware that we've recently introduced the police dog Viv. Have you met Vivian yet? Police dog Vivian? No? Okay, I'll have to bring her to show you. We are very, very grateful to the Alcohol and Drugs Partnership for the funding around the police dog, etc., and the handler. We are having amazing results actually with the dog itself, which I'll come on to later on, to tackle and prevent drugs coming onto our islands through various means, certainly ferries and through the post, and also on the secondary, we are obviously educating the young people. Only this morning there's been a workshop in the police station with young people from the local school here, Nicholson, around drugs awareness, drug identification, and the dangers, of course, of drugs for them. Okay, serious and organised crime. Of course, we are committed to, and this comes down to, I think, drugs in the main, to tackling those groups who want to use our islands to either hold drugs or deal drugs from here to move back onto, or to move them back onto the mainland. So we're committed again in reducing the amount of opportunity that OCGs have in coming to our islands and either dealing drugs locally here or moving them around the island. Antisocial behaviour. Yeah, we have young people in pockets around the islands, as we will get anywhere. And I think in the summer it gets a little bit more prevalent when the schools are off. I have got officers who have been tasked to go out into those key areas that have been identified to engage with the young people. That's what we want to do: engage with them, support them, and move them on if necessary, and around the consequences of ASB, etc. as well. So that's a few of the key areas from there. Protecting vulnerable people, sorry, I'll come on to as well. Very important we protect our vulnerable people. I have been informed that the islands have the ageing population in the country. So it's about supporting vulnerable people, not just people who are subject to crime, but people that might go missing from home, people that have got difficulties around maybe living with dementia, etc. So there's a lot of work to be done around protecting our vulnerable people. Obviously, domestic abuse, young people, we've already touched on CSE, etc. So we're doing a lot of work around submitting the vulnerable person database entries when and every occasion we can do, to make sure we're building a picture and identifying those perpetrators and bring them to justice. So that's the main sort of focus areas that I think we've covered, unless I've missed anything. Alcohol, I'll just cover alcohol as well. Yeah, alcohol still continues to be a problem in Scotland in general. We've seen a slight increase in alcohol theft from the local stores, Co-op being one of them, and Tesco. We are working really well with the schools, etc., to try and deter sort of young people being involved in theft of alcohol or other usually sweets or products, etc., from the local stores. So working with the stores, and also I've got a Sergeant MacLeod who now is going to be chairing the Community Alcohol Partnership, which is going to be launched on the 25th of June publicly. That'll be a quarterly meeting, working alongside the Co-op, the stores, Tesco, any other stores, Pub Watch, actually for children, and a bid to tackle the harmful effects of alcohol in the main for young people, deter theft of alcohol and incidents around ASB in general. So there's a lot of work to be done around there. That launches very, very soon. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, that's a general overview. Do you want me to concentrate on just each area as it presents itself?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to the first main area, which is road safety and road crime. I've already talked about what we are doing out there, proactivity, certainly tackling speeding around the area. There's no speed cameras, I believe, in this island, which I was a bit surprised about when I came here. So we have to get out there with our speed guns to make sure that we are tackling those people. Just recently on the Tolster Straits, we had a 78 and a 60 and an 85 and a 60 there. So you can see the problems you've got there with speeding in certain areas. And we do go around as best we can around the islands to make sure that we focus on, well, problematic areas or areas that the community are telling us that are a problem as and when. The good news is there have been no fatals this year. I think there was one last year, which I wasn't here for. You'll see drink and drug drive offences from the data. It's a little bit down, but that's only year to date from 54 last year. We had 4 drink drivers this last week being brought to justice. So we are out there and we're stopping people, and we're relying members of the public to tell us, obviously, if somebody is drinking in a pub with keys, etc. So we're relying people to phone us and tell us if somebody's going to drive. Drug driving is quite controversial. Again, I was surprised we don't have drug swipes, which is probably a contentious issue for you all on the islands. We've had them in the mainland for many years I can remember. The issue with drug swipes is that we do not have the resource at the laboratory to process the samples as they go through. That's something that's been tackled and been looked at. and we're hoping to get feedback at some point about the expansion or extra staffing around the laboratories, so we can then actually get these drug swipes. Because I can pretty much tell you that I think we'd find a lot of people who are drug driving around on the islands, I would imagine, here. So it's something that I'm quite keen to try and get onto the island as soon as we possibly can. But it's not our barriers, it's the barriers around the testing at the moment. But I'll keep you posted on that. So into the stats, you can see, obviously, if you look at Shetland, Orkney and Western Isles, we are slightly higher, but we've got a bigger sort of geographic area to sort of cover there. But nothing, the drink driving, of course, we're tackling head on. As I say, we're getting people brought to justice for this week, which is really good. Operation Cedar, which you'll have read there, which is a sort of force-wide partnership. We've actually got an Operation Cedar operation that's going to come into effect in the summer, which is going to focus on ASP driving element of driving. So we're looking forward to that. Any questions on road safety and road crime? No?
Not seeing any questions on anybody. Oh, George. Councillor George Murray.
Attending the community councils, one of the recurring themes in the town is Point Street.
Yeah.
Every time it's at the top of the agenda, and I know the bollards are going in. I presume it's going to be ANPR. Is ANPR going to be part of the bollards system on Point Street? I'm told it is, but there still seems to be a lot of it going on. Someone struck a car last week, and I wonder, do you have the manpower to maybe put a walking policeman down again?
No, we were there actually only this week, and there was a ticket given out, I think, just this week for parking on there, and we're reversing some people out of there. We're trying to educate people, really. You know, there's education and there's the penalties. Educating people probably what's better than penalising people. However, it gets to that point where we have to take some action really to combat it. It's the same with parking in double yellow lines. There's parking, people are parking wherever they want on the island, I've noticed. I think we used to have a parking warden at some point that was funded. And I think my boss, Mr. McCartney, is quite keen to work with the all to try and get some funding to get someone back doing that role, because I think it really is needed here. People are parking right outside the entrance to the police station on double yellow lines, if that tells you anything around people's perception. So there's been tickets given out this last week just outside the police station, not exclusively, but I'm not having people park right outside the police station on double yellow lines. It just shows discontempt. So we are taking action on that. So rest assured, and from this meeting, I'll make sure that Point Street is given its proper coverage. No problem at all.
Thank you very much. The next online, Councillor Norrie MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And thanks for the report. I think car issues are pretty much the fore everywhere. We don't have a traffic warden, unfortunately. I brought this up several years ago, thinking it would be a quite straightforward thing, until I was told of the money required to fund 2 traffic wardens. I think it was a fairly astronomical sum, somewhere in the region of £250,000 just for 2 traffic wardens. Point Street has always been an issue. I try to stay outside the sign rather than go into the area. But I know there is no traffic warden around. But you know, there's still part of me that thinks I'm going to be breaking some kind of rule. So, but Point Street has become a bit of a free for all, and I'm glad to see that something's been done about Point Street. I'd like to thank your officers as well. I put a request in. I know one of the officers through another connection. I had a request from a member of the public down in my own ward, Skeeter Row, about speeding drivers. And then within the space of that same week, we had 2 young speeding drivers off the road in Point. It seems to be a recurring thing with young drivers and their inability to not race everywhere they go. And I'm very grateful that your team managed to intervene and managed to show a presence down in Point. And it's good to see. And I know there's a paucity of resources everywhere, highlighted in fact by the inability to have any drug swipes in place. I reported an incident over a year ago, where a driver was clearly incapacitated in the middle of the road, abandoned, but he hadn't abandoned his van. He was still sitting in his van in the middle of the road. I inquired later. He was taken back to the police station. He had no alcohol in his system, but he was very clearly incapacitated through something else, obviously through substances. And the issues with the hospital doing anything about bringing a doctor down to do a drugs test or any kind of testing on substances other than alcohol was a refusal. I don't know that it ended up in a criminal conviction, because I don't think anything could have been done, because he didn't test positive for alcohol. He was obviously impaired through something else. Now, I don't know how much these things would cost, and I know that the dog has been funded through the ADP. Do we have a ballpark figure for funding, and is there a way that maybe you could bring this to possibly any of the funding agencies, and it's something that we could maybe support? I sit on the ADP board, and I know some of the folk on here have connections with the ADP, and it's something that through possibly the health board in another avenue, it would be good to see how much that cost could be borne by some of the other agencies involved in tackling drug and alcohol abuse. I just wonder how much would it cost for that regime to be set up, because it seems a big gap in our policing that we don't have the ability to provide testing for drugs and driving. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but do you have any idea of what the ballpark figure for cost for that would be?
I wouldn't. I'm really sorry, I wouldn't. But thank you for your feedback on the speeding. I really appreciate that. It's appreciated. They're also doing the best they can. It's something we need to look into. I'll speak to Mr. McCartney about it. It's if we could get. I think in a perfect world, if we could get the samples done locally, then would be better. I think it's the cost of the drug swipe, and then the sending them across the mainland to the laboratory on the mainland to then get processed is the problem, really, and the laboratory obviously having a problem with the staffing of it. But I promise you, we'll look into it further just to see. I am pretty much driven to getting drug swipes on this island, really, because I think it really is required. If I'm honest, because what you don't want to do is miss. You miss a drink driving element. Because they've been drinking, but they've been drug driving, but you have a problem trying to actually bring them to justice. And it's the same penalty, of course, as drink driving and drug driving. So, and most people do drug drive because they think it's okay. So there's a lot of education around there, and we're doing some education with the schools around that sort of stuff as well, as young people come out of the schools and into that age where they can start driving. So there's a lot of education around drug driving being done at this moment in time. But rest assured, we'll do our best for you, and I'll speak to my boss about it, and we'll try and drive it forward.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, again, I think just go back and briefly, Chair. Sorry about this. I think what we're seeing just now is the island culture has changed, and that's the young folk are now. They're no longer young. They're moving into the middle age, and they've had the association with drugs more than we ever had when we were young, when the association was with drink. So that gap in your ability to police that, I think, is something that needs to be addressed. And if you could come back with a figure, and we maybe work together to find a way of providing the resource for it, it's obviously something that you need to tackle and we need to tackle as well. Again, it's a gap that I think needs to be plugged in. You're wanting to plug in, and obviously finance again is the issue. So if you could come back with a figure, maybe speak off the record, with ourselves through the ADP, possibly through the licensing board, etc. It's a conversation I think that we need to address and see if we can do something about it, because it seems, like I said, a gap that we can plug, and it's a very obviously and glaring gap if there's no ability for drug drivers to be tested, found, whatever they are, and then either prosecuted or let go. But again, we can do something working together, hopefully.
No, I totally agree. And the problem you get, same with speeding and drug driving, you get complacency because they know there's no speed cameras in Ireland, unless we're there, obviously, and there's only so many of us really to go around to actually do that, speeding with the gun, etc. We get complacent people who speed and take drugs and drive because they know there's no we don't have the drug swipes, we don't have the cameras on the roads. So no, it's something we will work on. I totally agree. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Mustafa Hussain online.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks very much, Inspector, for your report. And yeah, since we're talking about drug identification, I think you can get disposable, and I'm sure if you liaise with the addiction service in the Western Isles Hospital, you can get disposable drug kits that will give you an indication. They're not admissible in court, but lead you at least after that to request a medical surgeon to take blood, because the blood will be that you need, so by disposable kits are not that expensive, and you can liaise with our colleagues from the addiction unit and they'll be able to help with that, I think. So that's not the question I was going to ask, but since we're talking about drugs as well, just for clarification, when there is a road traffic collision, is it an automatic breathalyzing or sample taken? Just the reason I'm saying was 2 weeks ago we had an accident, an automatic collision here, where the mother had a baby at the back of the car, and there was suspicion about the driver of the van that hit her, and the family were asking the policeman why is the guy not breathalyzed, and the policeman said, why do I need to breathalyze him? He wasn't showing any sign of anything. So I'm just asking for clarification, because my understanding, I thought in the past it was automatically somebody get breathalyzed if there is a collision, a serious collision. So
No, that's fine. That's my understanding of it. It certainly was in England and Wales. Any road traffic collision, including a police officer, having an on-duty police officer has a traffic collision, they will be breathalyzed exactly the same as anyone else, and rightly so. So for me, I don't think Scotland's is any different, although I'm learning all the laws around Scotland, which are a bit different from England and Wales. I wouldn't imagine there's anything different there, but I will clarify that for you. But if there's any RTA, RTC, what you call it, both drivers should be breathalyzed. By matter of course. It's exactly the same with any moving traffic offence. We can. That's the powers we've got. So I don't see, that may be education. I'll take that back. That may be education for the officers or certain officers to establish that. That's fine.
It was 3 weeks ago in a road here, a mother coming back from the nursery. She had a baby at the back, and a van that was coming at a blind summit, very speedy, and just hit her, end up in the ditch. And there was nothing done. The police attended. There was one policeman, but the family were asking, the husband was asking if, why you not breathalyze him and things, and the policeman said, why should I breathalyze him? Don't need to breathalyze him. So just wanted clarification on that.
Okay.
Please. Yeah. The other thing, I think, Neil, we spoke briefly about the automatic license plate identification, I think, in ports and entry points on the island. I think when we met at the youth conference in Stornoway, you mentioned something about vehicle identification. I was interested in that because obviously that's quite especially for an island, that got specific ports of entry, so it will be something useful and, in terms of combating crimes and identifying, so are we talking, what figures are we talking about in, if we were thinking of installing vehicle identification?
No, good question. I was going to cover this anyway. Okay, since I've come to the island, we don't have one ANPR, automatic number plate recognition camera, which I was pretty much gobsmacked about, really, from an island that people can come to on a ferry. And certainly if I was wanted, or if I was a high-risk registered sex offender or anything, I might just come to the island, because who's going to stop me and who's going to get me, really? So it's a real concern of mine, really, when I came here to find that out. That also is compounded with the fact that SSAN, as you know, are going to be building a massive power station here. We're going to have basically strangers, 1,000 to 1,500 people coming on here to work here. I don't know what the vetting process is going to be like. However, if I wanted to commit hostile reconnaissance in an area, there'd be no better, easier way than get into a job there, really, as an employee to come across, etc. So from that, I've linked to my SSAN. And also spoke to my counter-terrorism colleagues down in the Met Police in London. It was the back of an airport meeting I was on, actually, and they have given me a proposal of cameras that can be situated both in the mainland and on the islands to actually, catch people from coming away and coming onto the islands here. there'll be four CT MPR cameras. It's the same functionality, but it's got a CT element as well to it to catch the vehicle plates. 4 in the ports on the mainland, feeding into the islands from the top right down to the bottom in Barra and Castle Bay. That come through, and 3 cameras actually situated on the islands here to counter that as well. So you'll have 7 cameras in total at a cost of £63,000 at the moment to have those cameras installed. Maybe a little bit more. There's one area that Anish, I think, that needs a post putting in. But I'm actually pushing the SSEN to say you've got a community funding pot for your hundreds of billions of worth of project, and for the increased security of the people on this island, the community, and the safety and security of the people working on this power station, etc., the workers here. I'm asking them to fund or to look at funding those cameras. Next month, I've got the 2 officers from the counter-terrorism unit actually coming here to do a reconnaissance operation here, just to look at the sites and link in with the local authority or council here about those sites, because you usually tap them into like lampposts and street lighting, just to see what to see if it's going to be feasible, which I'm driven again to make sure that we get this home really. If we don't get funding, we might get part funding, which means I might have to look at other areas of funding pots, which some people here might be able to help, I don't know. But I think it's imperative really that we know when vehicles are coming off that ferry, because the police national computer holds all the information really. So we put on things called act markers to act. It could be a high-risk missing person. It could be a welfare check, somebody that's wanted from the mainland. It could be the counter-terrorism are actually interested in this individual. And we get alerts through the system, and then we stop them and go from there. At the moment, we don't have that at all. So, and that is a worry for me, really, moving into the first quarter of next year when we start seeing the first boots on the ground, really, for the works coming through next year. So it's my sort of my goal to try and get these cameras in place before Christmas, really, if I possibly can. But I'm working on it. That's one of my goals.
Thanks for that.
That's good. Thank you.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you very much.
Oh, hang on.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that overview. 2 questions. Firstly, I think Councillor MacDonald online alluded to it regarding resourcing for drug testing, drug driving. In your own opinion, how prevalent is drug driving from your past experiences compared to drink driving?
I certainly can't comment for the islands because I haven't been here long enough, and we don't have that data because we don't have the the data about drug swipes. They've been on the mainland for as long as I can remember, actually, for drug swipes, and certainly people have moved away, in my experience, from drink driving. They've moved away from it because you probably see more symptoms around drink driving when you stop someone with the breath and everything, all the rest of it. So a lot of people have moved to drug driving, really, and I can't quantify it for you, so I apologise. However, it is more prevalent, I would say, than drink driving now, in my opinion. So
past experience down south.
Yeah, well, yeah, West Yorkshire Police, where I was, absolutely. So yeah, it's like I said before, it's something I think that needs to be included here on the islands. As I say, road traffic collisions, etc. We can breathalyse, we can drug test with a drug swipe, etc. If we do smell cannabis in a vehicle, we can drug swipe. The drug swipes are generally for cannabis and cocaine, which are the 2 main problematic area drugs for recreational use. So yeah, I'm all for basically trying to get around all the hurdles that the gentleman said, really, around trying to get those. It probably comes down to cost, and it comes down to laboratory being able the resources to process the samples.
Thank you. And Chair, my second point is, you just mentioned the police national computer. So if you do have a scenario where these surveillance cameras are at points of entries, what's the reaction time?
We react as for many officers that we have, really. We've got a system that we can put onto our computers in the station. So a sergeant for me would be monitoring that, and the control room, we've got a system as well, the police control room, where they monitor when we get a hit on the NPR system. Because a lot of the mainland cars have got, police cars have got the cameras on the cars, which we don't have yet, something I can work on as well. I'm just trying to get the cameras thing sorted first in the mainlands and islands. But they generally bring up, the cameras are automatically just all the time looking at registration numbers, all the time. And basically you'll get a certain tone that comes through, it tells you what it is. It could be no insurance, no MOT, could be wanted individual, it could be a CT marker, it could be a safe and well, it could be a high risk missing from home, it could be any one of these things. Stop check, safe and well. So we then get that report. Then we just send out the first available officer to go and intercept that vehicle and stop it, etc.
And coupled with that, you're also relying on advance intelligence from other police forces and agencies on the mainland too.
Yeah, because the system used to have to be downloadable for all the intelligence information to be up to date, but I think now it's done by GPS. So it's all done automatically through the cameras, through the systems. You used to have to plug something into the cars and download it all every day before you went out. But now I think the cameras have got to that they've got that GPS sort of update now, so they're always updated with. Because what you don't want to do is have it stop a car, sort it, then stop it again and again and again. The marker's got to be made clear if you've dealt with this sort of thing. So the technology's there. It's getting it onto the island, which I'm pretty much driven to do, really. So I think it's only right and proper.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Kenny MacLeod.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for that. And I'm really encouraged to hear what you're saying about ANPR and the swipes. As a former law enforcement officer that's made use of them both in a previous life, they are invaluable, and they're a tool that gives that early indication and could help stop things getting worse. And I think we need to be pushing as hard as possible to get them. And I'm encouraged that you're speaking to SSEN and getting them to fund it, because public bodies like ourselves, like the police, are strapped for resources. And if we can get developers to fund things like this that are for the benefit of the whole of the Western Isles, then it has to be applauded. So thank you for that. Just one clarification. Did you say you had 4 point of entry ones and 3 across the rest of the islands? Because there's 5 points of entry into the island.
There's 4 on the mainland that will feed in. I think the last one's Oban, but it will feed in. So the 4 are going to be situated from the report that I've got. I don't know the full I'm not really au fait with the geographics of all the islands yet, but they'll feed in from sort of the southern part of Scotland working up the way, and they'll all feed into the islands as the ferries are coming into the islands right from the top, right to the bottom. So they've reckoned it. To be fair, they've looked at it, and it's a really good proposal they've put through, really intelligent proposal. And because they do this all the time, that's what they do. They fit cameras they get an area and they look at it, but they're going to come out next month and actually go get in the ground and look at it and make sure they're happy with those locations. The Port Authority are quite, apparently, it's difficult to get cameras put on their property. So all we'll do is we'll look at the roads, the only roads in and out, and work with the local authority council here to get those fitted to the appropriate posts and wired and etc. to go from there. So it's exciting stuff, really. So I'm looking forward to. Well, I'm working on it and trying to get that at home. I'm going to be quite driven to get it sorted.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Norrie MacDonald online again.
Yeah, sorry to take up more of your time, Chair. We've had a successful relationship through the pub watch scheme and the licensing board with SSEN, where they funded the training for doormen, because we anticipate there is going to be heightened activity with the influx of workers. We've obviously liaised, I think, with yourselves as well. We know what's coming, and we can predict that there's going to be an increase in incidents, whether we like it or not. And we'd like to think that the employers and the developers are going to agree to a zero tolerance policy. So maybe in further conversations with SSEN, having originally funded our door staff training, maybe we could get them to look at putting some money behind swabs, etc. So, I mean, I don't know if you have somebody that's involved in an incident just now. I don't know, would you assume that you can make the assumption that he's either drunk or there would be drugs involved, but would you breathalyze somebody who was drunk and disorderly, or would you rely just on the evidence of your own eyes? I mean, I don't know, but drugs are more prevalent than they've ever been on the island. So I think a conversation with SSEN, possibly with maybe prodding them for some more funding. Again, I would like you to, if you could come back to us with some indicative costs, and maybe we could go to them as a licensing board of pub watch, etc., and see if maybe we can squeeze something out of them for that. And obviously liaising with yourselves, because your officers would be the ones deployed to use the swabs or the swipes.
Yep, absolutely. I think we're all probably concerned, I'm only new to the island, really, about the services and the volume of people that are going to be coming onto the island, really. Notwithstanding the families that may be visiting back and forward to meet those employees coming back and forward. And there's no doubt about it. And I'm not speaking out of turn here. There will be recreational drugs users. There will be, in any amount of people, you're going to have that. So I've got assurances. I'm in meetings with Balfour Beatty, who are doing the initial reconnaissance on the islands around the sites, etc., and security. Regular meetings with Neil Bannerman, and who's a highly intelligent man who's done this for a long time in different areas, different islands around Scotland. They're going to have a zero tolerance policy with employees or here for the work. Any misdemeanours, any police attention, any crime, they are off the island and they're sacked and they've gone. That's been agreed already, and they're also looking at their own drug testing as well, random drug testing as well for the people coming on the island, which will help, which is what you're saying, I think, for the gentleman on the screen. But I can certainly talk to them again around funding, around drug swipes, etc., if they have that funding capability. I'm certainly pushing them for the cameras, but they've got to understand that if they're going to bring that many people, which is probably another fifth of the population really here onto the island, it does come with some caveats really around safety, security on the islands. We're not getting any more police officers for this. So then if there's going to be squabbles or disorder in the town centre or whatever, then because they're going to be off on a Sunday, I think they won't work on a Sunday, so they'll be Saturday night will probably be a key flashpoint if there's going to be any really out in the town. But we can only do what we can really with the officers we've got. So we're sort of pushing that back to them really to say, look, we expect and demand good behaviour from your contractors while they're on the island. So, but we are working closely with them to give you some reassurance and confidence around that.
Thank you very much for all of that, and I think we've rehearsed this particular aspect of the report very fully. So perhaps we move on. Your next. That's
a long talk. Yeah, okay, no problem. I'll skim over some of this because it might take maybe more of your time. We've talked about drugs. I'll talk about the police dog. As I said, we are super grateful to the Alcohol and Drugs Partnership to get funded the dog, which has been absolutely incredible. When it came in 2025, we've had searches at Post Office, sorting office. When the dog goes to the sorting office, did this morning, it'll find something every single time without fail. If that gives you some, indication about drugs. Usually between 3 and 6 packets are found in different various forms, shapes, volumes, different types of drugs. Since March 25, I think when we started this, through the sorting office, drug search warrants been sworn out, of course, with the PFs. Events like your barras, lives, and all the different events, which you don't generally get a big drugs problem with. And people have been stopped, searched. There's been about 67 fines, and some of them quite high volume fines in general, ranging from cocaine, cannabis, dihydrocodeine, diazepam, heroin, Valium, and the list goes on. So we are getting it to 2026 today, 52 fines already this year, from the drugs dog alone. So you can see the value of the funding around the drugs dog is fantastic. That's why you'll see in the data that your drugs possession offences are through the roof, because we're tackling it, we're dealing with it, and we're finding it through the really good work by. I want to really applaud the CID team. We've got it's only one detective sergeant and a couple of DCs and the dog handler work together. Obviously, we help as well as much as we can. I went to a warrant only last week to help out the team with numbers. It's a joint effort, but the CID team they are working on the intelligence, developing warrants, and every other week we're doing a warrant in the town, in the area, in the islands. Only last week there was a warrant just done in Barra. So not only are we dealing with people here, but we're not only focused on here, we're focused on the entire islands. We're developing intelligence to do drugs warrants, and I say there was a positive one it was Barra or Ewes, I can't remember now because my geographics aren't great yet, but it was in the Southern Islands, and we got a positive result from that. So those people who think they can maybe deal drugs or grow drugs in the extremities of the islands are basically not safe from us basically tackling them, and that's the message that I want to send out really to people that live there. So so the drug side is going fantastically well. ASB we've talked about, there's little pockets of ASB, I think the library, etc. I've had a sergeant attend a meeting, I think it was this week, around ASB. I don't think we've got a major problem with it unless anybody's going to tell me otherwise. However, I think a lot of the good work we're doing with the schools through our schools officer, Donald Steele, is really helping to reduce the pockets of ASB from young people in the community. We have a lot of respect for the children. We're doing things like I'll go into it later on, Kick About with a Cop, and all the workshops we're doing with the young people. We respect them and they respect us. And in that way, shape or form, when they're out and they may be being a bit rowdy, etc., they listen to the officers because they respect them, and we quell it pretty quickly. So unless somebody's got any questions on ASB, I can move on.
No, not seen any questions.
Good. We're going to acquisitive crime. That's like your serious acquisitive crime. We used to call it we called it burglary in England and Wales. You call it housebreaking here for a start. But one of the things I really enjoy about being in this island, it's only been 7 weeks, is the fact that dishonesty offences are very low. And I'm sure a lot of you lived here maybe a long time, all your lives, and it's really nice to see that if you left your car keys in your car wouldn't get stolen. Or if you left your door open all night by accident, nobody's going to break into your house or come in and steal something. I think that's a real plaudit to the islands, really, that we don't have dishonesty problems. Yes, you can see theft by shop. We've got a little bit of a spike in theft by shoplifting. Like I said before, it is theft in the stores around sweets and bits and bobs. But some of them not targeting the school children. Some of the school children maybe escaping from the school and getting there. We're working with the head teachers. The head teachers certainly next door, and the schools to try and combat that really as best we possibly can. And also the larger co-op and the smaller co-op actually in the town around the opportunity for theft. We do find, and I found in the mainland, sometimes your alcohol, for one, sometimes are near the exit aisles to encourage people to buy it on the way out. We do try and educate the stores to say, look, I understand you want people to buy it on the way out. However, you're given a bigger opportunity for people to steal alcohol on the way out. So just be aware of that. So there's a bit of education around the stores as well. So working with them as well to combat that. Theft of motor vehicles negligible. Fraud, I'll touch on fraud. I think fraud is it's reported to always be a problem on the islands, certainly telephone fraud. I think we've all probably been there, had that phone call. And people can take you in quite easily. I am working in partnership with the banks in Stornoway around fraud. I want to want to work with them to go out with the police officers in any of their community events they're going to do this year and throughout the summer around banking. The banking protocols are in place, so if somebody's taken to the bank by a criminal to withdraw large sums of money, it's flagged up straight away to us, which is really good. But fraud continues to be a concern because you've got people here that live remotely that maybe don't have the education or the engagement around the types of fraud that we have currently. Because fraud's always, it's modernising all the time, how people con people and get money out of them, etc. But we'll do our very best to have community roadshows with the banks and on our own, really, to get out to the hard to reach communities really and educate them around the emerging threats on fraud, etc., to try and reduce it as best we can. So that's all around the fraud side of it. Okay, so that's acquisitive crime. Any questions on that?
I'm not seeing any questions.
Nope. Okay, move on to protecting vulnerable people, which is one of the main reasons why we do our job. One thing I will say, we had dementia awareness training recently by Alzheimer's Scotland to all the police officers in Stornoway. I was actually an ambassador for the Alzheimer's Society for 12 years in England and Wales, and I ran a voluntary group with a cafe once a month. I was heavily involved in it, and I was the single point of contact and the force champion for British Yorkshire Police on protecting, supporting people with dementia, not only professionally, where people go missing from home with dementia, but officers actually having mum, dad, auntie, uncle, granddad. So I've done over a decade's worth of work, which I'm proud of, to try and support people around that debilitating illness. And I want to continue that really on the islands. Because we've got a higher aging community, there's more prevalence for people maybe living with dementia and the possibility of going missing from home. So we, above and beyond that, training around dementia awareness and understanding, which helps enhance that inquiry. The information officers need to then, if they get a missing from home inquiry, they can deal with it and they know what to do with it. And also around the Herbert Protocol. If you haven't heard about the Herbert Protocol, please look it up. It's a system that's put in place from a a World War I veteran called George Herbert. It's just a document that underpins somebody's history and their life. And it puts things on the document like the last addresses, the old jobs, the routines, etc. The document's made available if somebody goes missing from home, living with dementia. It's like a gold nugget for us. We get it and we task out inquiries to the officers. Go to that old address, go to the graveyard. He was found there twice last week, whatever it might be. So we have trained our officers around the HIB protocol as well. Not only is that a paper document that we can be handed, we're looking at having that put on a digital platform that can be accessed by hub commanders or inspectors who are managing high risk missing from home inquiries, that they can task those inquiries straight away so they can get access to the databases to save people's life really, really quickly in that golden hour response. So that's something we're doing around vulnerable people living with dementia in general. We've got vulnerabilities, of course, around domestic abuse. As you can see with the stats, they're sort of similar from year to date last year. It still remains our focus, domestic abuse, and tackling it and bringing those perpetrators to justice. We've got you can see we've got a high detection rate, which I'm really proud to see, nearly 80% detection rate there for people being brought to justice. We've just been brought in body-worn video cameras here, which we're using now. We've had them in the mainland and Bishop's Police for 25 years, so we're a little bit behind here. But those cameras, the officers are trained to have those cameras on as soon as they get to a domestic abuse scene or any scene, so they can gather evidence that's there as they see it. A lot of domestic abuse victims, we go to them, we get the report, we come away then to go back and see them, and somebody's got to them and told them not to make a report. The camera footage we get at the scene at the time is we can then push for victimless prosecutions. You know, if somebody says, I don't want to give you a statement or any information now, we can push that and still bring offenders to justice. So the cameras are imperative really for us, that we use them in every single domestic abuse or any other live incident that's actually occurring, so we can gather that evidence. It's like an independent witnesses, our body-worn cameras, which is really good evidence for the PFs to make a decision. So hate crime remains with us. We've all seen the news recently, where the young man was killed by a Sikh. You'll have seen the news that happened recently. I've been down to the mosque already because I did a lot of work with the mosques in West Yorkshire Police. We've got Bradford there and Huddersfield to give them some reassurance around, just in case they have, yes, the Sikh community and the Muslim community, but some people don't see the difference. So I'm doing some work there to give them some reassurance and confidence in reporting anything to us if they do get anything. The really nice thing is that they've not, when I went to see them and had a visit with the mosque for the prayers, they haven't had any bother here whatsoever. And I'm really proud about that. That's a fantastic thing, because unfortunately on the mainlands, a lot of the mosques get targeted. Not all the time, but they do get, of course. So I'm keen to make sure if anything does happen here, then they report it straight through to us and we deal with it robustly. Missing persons, I've not even been aware of many at all since I've landed here 7 weeks. We had one lady from the local care home that caused us quite a bit of grief, but she's now moved to the mainland. So missing from home is not an issue at this moment in time for young people or absconders, which is really, really good. So that's protecting vulnerable people, which is our main focus, and we will continue to do that. I also work hand in glove with Michael, who's head of social care here, and the justice team leaders, Andrew McCauley, etc. We have weekly meetings around anyone who's come to our attention around vulnerability, and I'm sitting on work as well with Erica from SCRA around we're doing audits now on pre-birth to try and identify good practice that could be better in the future. So there's lots of stuff going on there about protecting vulnerable people that we're tapping into. Any questions on that?
I'm not seeing any questions.
Okay, skipping on to, we've already covered really serious and organised crime. We know there's county lines in the country, in the mainland. We'll be no different here. I'm certainly alive to the fact that we have a thing called cuckooing, which drug dealers and people move into vulnerable people's addresses and take over basically and drug deal from there or manufacture drugs from there. I don't think we've got a massive problem here with that, but we are aligned to that. The cuckooing side of OCG networks. We're working obviously with our CT colleagues. We had a CT input, counter-terrorism input, only 2 weeks ago, where they gave us updates on looking for things like flags and symbols and signs and books, etc., when we're in people's addresses, just in case we've got extreme right-wing material that we can feed back in as intelligence and link in with our CT college just in case. Again, I don't think we have a problem here with that. And we will continue, obviously, to tackle robustly those that deal drugs in our communities, etc. And again, that's been, we're swearing out warrants all the time and tackling these people and disrupting that behaviour, which is really good work through all the teams really here and the PFs for obviously authorising those warrants, etc. So pleased about that. That's it for that side of it. Any questions on serious and organised crime?
I don't think I'm seeing any questions.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Mustafa.
Sorry.
Mustafa has seen online.
Hi, thanks very much, Inspector. It was just a comment, not a question. Just when you're talking about extreme right and hate material, probably, although it's not prevalent, but there is, especially online, I've seen few comments. And in fact, to my astonishment, there is one guy in the Western Isles, for whatever reason, that keeps sending letters to all my colleagues except the Muslim councillors, he called them. And he sent, and I'm one of them that get excluded in his racist, hateful emails. But, I don't want it, but just to let you know that although it's a minority, but it still exists.
Right. No, not a problem. If there's anything at all that needs to be reported, we will tackle it head on. You have my word. There's no place for hate or race hate crime at all. And it is certainly, since I've been here and linked in with obviously the Muslim community, it's certainly not been reported to me firsthand. That's why I went to see them, really, to give that reassurance and confidence. If anything that does come up, we want to know about it immediately so we can deal with it and tackle it robustly. There's no place for that here.
Thank you.
Okay. I just touched on the drug possession offences. You see it's gone from 51 to 102. So it's doubled. That isn't a problem. That's the proactive work that we're doing. That's why the figure is so high. That's only a good thing. It's excellent that we're tackling these people and bringing them to justice through the warrants and through the good work of the drugs dog, etc. Okay, counter-terrorism we just talked about, so I won't go over that again. We just talked about the extreme right-wing stuff, etc., and us being able to identify people who need to be dealt with. I've got somebody from Prevent actually coming to the island very, very soon next week to speak to somebody here. So it's not a major problem, but they do obviously engage people, etc., onto their programs, etc. So we're welcoming them then next week. Okay, the next part of the report is obviously just the offences themselves. There's nothing, unless somebody's picked up on anything that I haven't, that's that's sort of super out of kilter, really.
Okay, can I ask if anybody has anything to ask about the offences themselves, the record of offences? You all have a chance to have a look at that, and I think we've had a lot of explanation of these figures. No, not seen anything.
I'm just going to I want to cover off just to conclude, if I can, if I may. We've talked about the road traffic productivity, we've talked about the drug swipes, we've talked about fraud. I want to highlight the excellent work we've done in the community. We kick about with a cop. It culminated last week with the school in Harris brought up to here, and my officers coming off duty. They come off duty to do this work, because it's fantastic to break down those barriers with young people. And like I said before, we want the young people to tell us what's going on in the community. Be able to say no to drugs or no to alcohol, and identify if there's somebody online who's trying to, CSE type was to tell us about it and have the confidence. This is what it's all about. It's about empowering young people to work with us to identify offenders and bring offenders to justice, and also breaking those barriers and show them the human beings that we are. We like football like everybody else does and other activities. So Donald Steele, our funded officer, has done workshops all this week between the 8th and the 12th, and they cover areas. Covering areas like I've got the timetable here. Housekeeping, they get a tour around the station. They get a lifeboat input, a firearms license and input. They get the drugs dog. The drugs dog did a demonstration this morning because I was there. So we hide a little bit of drugs, which are kept by the drugs handler safe. and the drug dogs come down, and the children can see that the people can see where the drug dog gets to the drugs, which is fantastic. The Scottish Ambulance Service, we've had them in doing life-saving CPR, etc. as well, and one of our detectives, Gary Muir, doing the forensic crime scene management with them, all around crime scene management. Just some of the timetable really that we're doing with the children, which is getting fantastic feedback. We have 36 interested officers doing across the Highlands and Islands doing learning Gaelic. You'll be pleased to know, which I think is absolutely imperative to maintain that language skill. We've talked about the Community Alcohol Partnership already, which launches the 25th of June, and I've got a sergeant who's leading on that piece of work. We've got 8 officers now trained in psychoproficiency. So we can. I've got 2 bikes at the moment. I got serviced, so they can now go out and about on the push bikes, etc., and do their job equally around the community. My boss, Ms. McCartney, sent out to all the schools. We're setting up a schools road safety champions network as well around speed awareness and driving offences. We've talked about that. Forthcoming events. Obviously, we've got the World Cup. It's just going to start very, very shortly. Be assured and have the confidence that we are doing licensing checks. They've already came through right across the islands. And I've got a single point of contact sergeant for each of those areas to make sure the officers are going out there and they're educating probably some of the more outer, well, them all, the outer sort of bar areas and community areas, that they have the correct licenses to actually host the event and the correct license to actually show the event as well. Now, I wouldn't like my officers to be in the middle of an event and tell them to switch the telly off mid-match, really. I think that'd be pretty difficult. However, I'm getting them proactively to go out and check licenses and check that sort of stuff beforehand, which I think is more prevalent. We've got EDL, we've got HibKelp, we've got Bar Alive. Again, we are part of, the police are part of all those events. We've got staff and deployment in hand, and we're looking forward to the fun and enjoyment that brings to the community, etc. And pretty much we don't have a lot of incident really, which is actually fantastic. But the drugs dog, PD Viv will be at all these events really as more of a deterrent than anything else to anybody who wants to bring maybe drugs into these events. I think that's it from me, unless there's any questions.
There is one I see, Councillor Hussain online.
Apologies for being a pest. It was in relation to the World Cup opening, the late openings, especially in the outskirts here in the Euston Barra. In terms of, obviously, is there any plans for? Because sometimes the difficulties is when the pubs are open late, is safely taking people home. So in terms of transport and things like that, sometimes my concern with these late openings that people are already over intoxicated because they've been there for too long, and obviously not finding a safe place to go home, a safe mean to go home, and so are there any arrangements with the pubs to make sure that there are transports available? And
no, it's a really good question. To be fair, I'm certainly going to make sure my officers are out and about at kick-out times for pubs. Of course, I've only got so many that I've got to my, calls, etc. We'll do our best to make sure, and it's a really good question because people will be drinking the early hours, and it's going to be the middle of the night, and we want to make sure that, especially if somebody's vulnerable, they get home safely. So it's something I'll speak to my boss, Ms. McCartney, about. We'll do our bit, of course. Now, in the mainland, we have things like street wardens, street pastors, and things like that, community wardens that are tasked for things like this. Or street angels, we call them as well, who do volunteers who do fantastic work. Maybe something, I don't know if you've got that here, I don't think you have. Maybe something we need to work towards, maybe having something like that established, a sort of street angel or street wardens for these sort of events.
There is street pastors in Stoneway, so there are in Stoneway itself, in the town itself, but talking about rural areas like Euston Barra, when the pubs are themselves are dispersed all over the island. So
we'll certainly focus as police officers on making sure people are, as best we possibly can do, of course, with the numbers we've got, and we clear places out, because they can't. They've got a license to a certain point, certain time, they've got to be out and closed down by then. My officers are making sure they go and make sure that everything's shut down at a certain time, etc. And then we go from there, unless there's that obviously extra time, etc. And they're allowed, they are allowed that to a certain point. But rest assured, we'll do our very best we can.
it's half an hour after the end of the game. So you're looking at Scotland game, you're looking at 4 o'clock in the morning, so
Yeah,
that's a long time to be in the pub.
It certainly is. And I'm sure we'll have some calls for service. I've got no doubt about it. Hopefully not, but we'll deal with that as we see it and do our best to clear people out as safely as we can and get people away. MD, it's our duty responsibility. MD that's cannot walk, we have to make sure that they get home, and whether it's a taxi or other means, or calling somebody to come and collect them. So, but we'll do our very best we can with the resources we've got, if that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. And I'd like to thank Inspector Taylor for his very full report, and to thank you all for your contributions. Do members agree to note the report? Agreed. Thank you very much. And we move on now to item 4. I'd like to welcome Group Commander Chris Smith to the meeting and invite Group Commander to speak to his report on the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. And Robert Lennox online, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the invitation to discuss the performance of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service across the Western Isles for this reporting period. Apologies I couldn't be there in person today. However, I'm very pleased to introduce yet another positive report delivered by our professional staff and operational crews, alongside our partner agencies who we thank for their ongoing support. Before we discuss the report in detail, Chair, I'll provide some key updates from across the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, starting off with our Service Delivery Review Programme. Since the last meeting of this board, some progress has been made in relation to this, as the service looks to realign our resources to meet operational risk and demand. Recommendations from the service on the 23 change options will be shared publicly on the 15th of June, prior to the board meeting on the 22nd of June, where board members will take decisions on the options being progressed. I must highlight at this point in time, none of the 23 options concern or impact the stations on the Western Isles, and I'll keep you updated on the outcome of this process. Moving on to our local fire and rescue plans, in July last year we published our new strategy, which triggered the need for the service to review existing local area fire plans. A template for the new plan has been produced, which local staff will use as a foundation to produce an ambitious and progressive plan to improve community safety and wellbeing throughout the Western Isles. The plan for the Western Isles is scheduled to be published for 10-week consultation period starting in early July, and the feedback of the committee members, our partners and Eilean residents will be most welcome during this process. And lastly, Chair, I'm very sad to advise that I'll be leaving my position as LSO for the Western Isles to take up my new role as Local Senior Officer for Dumfries and Galloway, where I previously served. I would like to express my sincere thanks to everyone for their support over the past 12 months. The past year has been a notable highlight of my career. It has been a privilege and an honour to have served this special part of Scotland, and I will cherish the fond memories of my time here, and I hope that I've played a small part in promoting the safety and well-being of Eilean communities. My colleague, Area Commander Andy Wright, will take over from me on the 20th of July. Andy is an experienced officer and will be in touch to formally introduce himself. Chair, that concludes my update. I'll now pass over to Group Commander Smith, who will talk to the report in more detail. Thank you.
Just before I bring him in, then I on behalf of the board, thank you very much for your service, and we have enjoyed working with you, and wish you all the best for Dumfries and Galloway.
Thank you, Chair.
Bring in Commander Chris Smith now.
Good afternoon, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. As Bobby said, we've had a good report for the last 6 months. Everyone has the report. However, I'll pick on some points and go through the report. So we'll start at number 3, accidental dwelling fires. There were 7 accidental dwelling fires during this reporting period, which sees a slight decrease when compared to the previous period. The majority are classed as low severity, requiring little or no intervention. To put this in context, the total of Western Isle incidents were 102, and ADFs make up 6.25% of the operational demand. The total number of ADFs for Scotland for this recording period was 1,817, with ours at 7. This is 0.4% of the total number for Scotland, which makes the Western Isles a very safe place to live. The Scottish average is 3.3 per 10,000 per population. We sit at 2.7 per 10,000 head of population, which is very low. For accidental fire casualties, glad to see there has been 0 in the recording period. The non-fire casualties, we have had an increase of 4. However, this increase can be attributed to the increase in assistant partner agencies, which is our special service, which is anything that is a non-fire. Section 6, deliberate fires. During the reporting period, we have had 6 deliberate fires. We strive for no deliberate fires. It sees a decrease when compared to the previous recording period. Of these incidents, 5 of them were involving grassland, woodland and crops. Our new wildfire response unit is utilised at these incidents with specially trained personnel. This has a 4x4, an ATV and enhanced equipment. This increases our firefighter safety and the speed where we can safely attend a remote location to get there as quick as we can. Section 7, non-domestic fires. We've attended 1 non-domestic fire. This is a relevant premise, a business. As this is a business, our fire safety enforcement officers will conducted a post-fire audit to make sure they comply with legislation. Our unwanted fire alarm signals has went down again, and you can see by the trend for the 4 years because of the new policy implemented on the 1st of July 23 is reducing. However, whenever we go to one of these premises, full advice is given. If it's a recurring place, this is put to our fire safety enforcement officers to enforce. Sorry, I just reiterate that. Like the police, we educate before we enforce. For road traffic collisions, during this period, 6 RTCs, which is a slight increase in comparison with the previous report. There were 7 non-fatal RTC casualties, again a slight increase. However, we're pleased to report there were no fatal. We continually promote safe driving engagements within schools with partners, and you'll see in the community section, which I'll cover, with the Young Drivers Safety Programme. Our home fire safety visits, we strive in this with the public to get the most person who needs our help. So we undertook 22 home fire safety visits during this period with the introduction of the new modernised home fire safety system. The referral pathways continue to embed themselves in. There's a pilot ongoing to make sure we're doing this as quickly and seamlessly as we can. Our fire safety enforcement officers and audit officers have undertaken 29 fire safety enforcement audits in this reporting period. Also, we have 1 member of staff aligned to the short-term lets licensing regarding Airbnbs. As you can see by section 12, our station availability and establishment, we always strive for 100%, but that's not always possible. The staffing levels and the availability, in the sign of the times, people work farther away from home. It does impact on our resilience. However, we do have firefighters who import into stations. It's not their station. However, if they're working in that area, they can mobilise from that station, so that increases our resilience. To back that, our recruitment is continual throughout the year. There is no specific time for recruitment. It's ongoing all the time. For our community safety engagement section, I've picked out some highlights. So the first one there is our key focus areas, which always links into our safety thematic action plan. So the things that we've achieved over the recording period, the bonfire and fireworks safety, road safety awareness, the fire and home safety, youth engagement, and careers and community presence. Over that, we've increased safety awareness across all age groups. We've built stronger relationships with schools, youth groups, and community partners, enhanced community presence and support for career pathways, and clear contribution to council priorities around prevention, youth engagement, and community wellbeing. All these things also link into the LOIP. For showing our commitment to increasing resilience across the area, Barra Community Fire Station We've aligned them with a 4x4 support vehicle, which can mobilise to incidents as well. So increasing the resilience across Barra. On the next page, you will see the Young Drivers Safety Programme, which is ongoing. Our bonfire safety advice and various exercises and training throughout the area, enhancing our safety. As you can see, the new recruits complete our task and task management course, which is a basic course for the old word. So the new firefighters passed out in December. This sees firefighters head out to fire stations in Stornoway, Scalpay, Weaverborough, Lochmaddy, Benbecula, Loch Boysdale, Barra, and we had one person from the mainland who is based in Kyle of Lochalsh. To backfill the number, we had one person who trained at Inverness, so they came back to the islands as well. This starts their their lifelong career, but it starts their 3-year development phase, which is ongoing training. The large animal training, there was refresher training carried out, and again, the joint exercises continue. To finish up, for community safety and engagement and that, one of the great things for firefighter safety is the rollout of our power rescued equipment. Scalpay was the last station, has upgraded kit, and it's a step forward offering major improvements in capacity. It is battery powered heavy rescue equipment, which is easier, lighter, safer and easier managed. And for our recent questions and answers section in number 14, a couple of highlights here. The Lewis, the new system, the new projects that are coming. We've had a meeting with RJ McLeod. They've factored in emergency response plans, which we have to comment on. There will be site visits and tabletop exercises and proper exercises taking into cognizance of what is going to be happening across the islands. The best systems, we haven't had much more update on that. There has been a meeting and a YPEG meeting. We await further communication. And finally, the Community Asset Register, which always push at every event. It is well embedded here on Lewis and Harris. However, work is underway by our team in the Southern Isles to broaden this register and embed it within the local resilience group framework, providing a more robust multi-agency approach to supporting our crews. This piece of work's been done in conjunction working with Councillor Steele down on Eust. Community Asset Register, as you're aware, and our police colleagues and ambulance colleagues, there are lots of extra equipment and personnel you can get in the mainland. We don't have that here. However, the Community Asset Register is golden. We need to try and beef that up down in the islands just to make sure we're all singing from the same hymn sheet to increase resilience. That concludes my report. Would anyone have any questions that I can answer?
I'll open up to questions either in the chamber or online. Councillor Hussain.
Just a question around the fire safety visit, the home visit. I noticed in your report a decrease from Q2, I think 24-25 between 48 to at the moment I think we had 13. In my previous job, I think I used to work quite closely with the fire service, and most of our vulnerable clients were referred for safety visits. Can you just an explanation of why the drop in the safety visits?
I certainly can, sir. The drop is we are now focusing on the people who require the help. Before, it would have been anyone. Anyone can still apply for it. There is a questionnaire. Generally, when we first started doing home fire safety visits, it would just be firefighters chapping doors, going in. However, the resources and prior commitments, it is now the most vulnerable members of society. It will come through a partnership agency referral. So that concludes how the numbers have dropped.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's remiss of me not to thank the fire service. for the partnership work. Part of the programme around the schools, from the schools officer, is for the fire service to come and show the vehicles, etc., to the young people at the police station. So we're very grateful for that support, as I am to the ambulance service at the same time. It's a small area, and we all have to work together to support each other, and that's exactly what we do. And long may that continue. So it's a thank you from me.
For that, and bring in Councillor Kenny MacLeod.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for the report, and it's good to see the ongoing progress in increasing the safety. And it's really on a related matter, and hopefully for a future meeting. I sit on the Partnership for Action for Water Safety, which is chaired by by one of your colleagues, and I'm just wondering, would it be possible to get a presentation at a future meeting on the work done on water safety? It's certainly quite a current issue. The recent hot spell, certainly on the mainland, resulted in over 20 fatalities, and it's something that we do need to be. We're very fortunate here so far, and long may that continue. But it would be good if we could get something from the group, and just to get a presentation and an update on all the activities that are going on.
Yes, no problem. In a previous position, I was involved with water safety, very prevalent. We work together as a partnership approach to water safety. We can't always do it ourselves. Luckily, since my time here on the islands, we haven't had to stand up this group for any incident. But I've taken note of that, and yes, and get back to you on that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, we'll have a chat at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from members? Not seen any. So do members agree to note the report? That's agreed. So again, thanks very much to both of you for that report. We move on to item number 5 now, under Consumer Environment Protection, a report by the Chief Officer, Assets and Infrastructure. This report seeks approval of the Environmental Health and Trading Standards Services Plan for 2026-27 as detailed in the appendix to the report, and Christine Morrison will speak to the report and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. The Environmental Health and Trading Standards Service Plan comes to the Community Safety Board on an annual basis. It outlines the main priorities and issues for the service for 26-27, and these are listed in section 5.3 of the report, and they cover the following areas: food safety, health and safety, animal health and welfare, trading standards, environmental health, public health protection, and various licences which are issued under animal health and welfare legislation and the Civic Government Scotland legislation. There's much more detailed information in Appendix 1 of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much for that report. Any questions from any members? Councillor MacLeod.
Yeah, just something that I noticed in the news recently, probably more so down in England than here, but there was we do have a lot of them here, the cake sheds that are popping up, and I'm wondering, is that included in this, or is this something that we don't have an issue with here?
Cake sheds and honesty boxes, we've got many of them throughout the islands. They're required to register with environmental health. They're inspected before they start feeding, and they're given advice in terms of food safety and food standards in terms of the labelling that needs to go on the products that they're making. So it is something that affects the islands, but I don't think it's quite at the stage that it is in the mainland.
Seems to be very well regulated here anyway, so thank you.
Any further questions? I'm not seeing any further questions. Do members agree the recommendations at 3.1? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item number 6, outcome delivery report. This item has been withdrawn from the agenda and will be presented to the next meeting of the board, which is September. If you can probably come around quickly. Item number 7, performance monitoring, reports outstanding. There are no reports outstanding. So that all that remains for me is to say the next scheduled meeting of the board will be on the 16th of September 2026, and thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you.